It came from.
It came from Reddit. Yes, this is the part of the show. Well, actually, hold on. Not just Reddit this week. We got stuff from all over. This is the part of the show where we search all over the internet to bring you topics the community is talking about. So we actually do have one of our patrons has submitted a question for us. This is from Michelle Tripp, our honorary Human Factors Cast staff. She writes, "Hi all, I have a question for you. I've been interested in evaluating the user experience of places like malls, airports, train stations, bus stations, etc. I've been researching different human factors engineering tools and principles that I can use to create a heuristic evaluation report for each place I visit. Most of the principles I've seen researching are about digital and physical products, but are there any principles that are specifically for spaces and places?" So we're talking about like heuristics for spaces and places. Blake, do you know of any heuristics for spaces and places?
So funny enough, Nick brought this up earlier on, and I do not. I am not big on physical design, although that may change here in the future. But one thing that I did find is a Kai paper that actually goes over developing and taking HCI principles, so stuff that you would typically see in those digital spaces, and applying it to a physical space and creating social interaction. And in some of those places that you're mentioning, this framework might be helpful to go over and just read their thoughts on translating some of the best practices from what you may know is usability heuristics or stuff that you would know is HCI guidelines and translating that into physical products. But I don't know like great standards or specifics for this kind of stuff. And I'm quite interested in what Nick has to follow up with this stuff for. But Nick, so what do you really have that is good for trying to tackle some of these problems or understand a physical space?
Okay, I have two answers. One is not really an answer to the heuristics question. One is an answer to that question. So what I have is there's I would imagine a good starting point for spaces and places is to take a look at standards. These are not heuristics in the sense that there are very specific standards that a lot of places have to adhere to, especially when it comes to something like OSHA, right? I mean, if you look at the OSHA regulations for spaces, they cover everything from like walking and working surfaces to exit routes, powered platforms, man lifts, occupational health and environmental control, hazardous materials, personal protective equipment, fire protection, materials handling and storage. There's a lot of stuff that goes into these standards. How do you condense that down into heuristics? I don't know. I'm sure somebody has done it, but the second answer I have is sort of the principles of universal design. And these are almost like system or space or place agnostic. If you think about what makes something usable, you have equitable use, flexibility in use, simple and intuitive use, perceptible information, tolerance for error, low physical effort, size and space for approach and use. So those are the 7 principles of universal design. And if you think about those heuristics as it relates to spaces and places, that might be a good place to start. I know it's not quite the answer you were looking for, but I think, there's a lot there that you can dig into. There's a resource that I have from, I think it's UX Matters. So I'll post that in the show description below. I'll also post that OSHA standard I mentioned as well for anyone who's interested in these types of things. But, thinking about that universal heuristic or that universal design heuristics, right? You can think about equitable use in the sense of user control and freedom, aesthetic, minimalistic design, and how those apply to the physical environment as well, right? There's a lot of those, there's a lot of the usability heuristics that actually might matter from the perspective of spaces and places. Now, I will say there's a lot of good information here. Maybe not all of them map to the physical space, but there is a good chance that most of them will.